Hi everybody. So today I'm going to talk to you about radio read alouds. This is Room to Read's response, or one of our responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. As our coaches cannot go to schools and work with teachers on reading aloud to children in the libraries, we decided to try out some radio read alouds with radio stations in the areas that we work in. So the agenda for my presentation is the purpose and goals of radio read alouds, reflection on read alouds, guidelines, tips for radio, and successes. So the problem: an estimated 91.3% of children worldwide are out of school due to COVID-19. Ministries of education are turning to distance learning solutions, but not all children have internet access. A part of the solution: radio is highly accessible in South Africa. Read alouds on the radio can engage many children in learning during this time. So what makes a good classroom or library read aloud? Well, children can see the pictures. There's interaction between teacher and children. The teacher is reading with expression, often making gestures, and the focus is on having fun. But what is different about a radio read aloud? As you can see from the slide, there's loads of fantastic pictures, and this is missing when you do a radio read aloud. These pictures often tell the story. They show emotion, they add humor, they expand on details or actions. They set the scene or they convey the tone. Often it's the pictures that make the whole story exciting. So how can we make up for lack of pictures? Well, we can select our books carefully. If we take this particular book here, here's some text from a book. If we just look at the text alone, the cat walked through the world with its whiskers, ears, and paws. And the child saw a cat, and the dog saw a cat, and the fox saw a cat. Yes, they all saw the cat. Text alone, and that can be quite boring. Looking at the pictures, now the story becomes a little bit more exciting because the cat looks different depending on who's seeing the cat. So some tips for book selection for radio read alouds. Then we try to select books where the essence of the story does not depend on the illustrations, where there is enough description in the text to fully tell the story. You often get that in higher level books, and where there is a clear storyline that can be told even if the words of the story do not fully tell it. And so when we first got together to prepare to do these radio read alouds, it was quite an eye-opener for us to realize the difference and the jump that the listener needs to make when all they're doing is just hearing a story. And how much more we've got to do to make the story more exciting. So we can still tell a level 1 story. If we look at the slide, the book text: horse tried to get the hat from the tree. And then the next page, cow tried to get the hat from the tree, and donkey tried to get the hat from the tree. So if all the listener is doing is hearing that, once again, it's not exciting, we don't get any of the detail. But we can add the detail, and when we do, we should try to do it in as natural a way as possible so that it blends with the story. So in a radio read aloud, we could say, for the first page. Horse tried to get the hat from the tree. He backed up to the tree and kicked with all of his might. The tree shuddered, but the hat did not fall down. Cow tried to get the hat from the tree. She shook the tree. She karate chopped the tree. Hiya! Finally, she head-butted the tree. Ouch! That hurt. Donkey tried to get the hat from the tree. She attached a rope to her harness and pulled, but the tree did not budge. So we can make the radio read alouds exciting by making reading fun. Read with a lot of expression, use different voices for different characters, experiment with sound effects. If one prepares really well, you could even bring some props and so on to make sound effects. Like if you're pouring water from a jug into a bucket in the story, you could actually do that over the radio. It's important to speak clearly, enunciate, and slow down. Engage the listener. So with distance engagement, we can pause while reading to ask for predictions and pause for learners to think. Like I could do now, asking you, well, what do you think so far about what I've just said about radio read alouds? Do you think it'll work or not? If there's an option for learners to call in, use it for comprehension questions, extension questions, and opinion questions. Encourage listeners to tell someone in their family about their favorite part or favorite character. They could retell the story or put on a play. Some tips: the 4 P's of radio read alouds. Preparation is key. Practice telling the story over and over again until it flows, you don't stumble over words, and it comes across naturally. Prosody, reading with expression. Practice varying your tone and give characters different voices. If somebody's saying something angry, and then you'd have a more angry tone. If it's sad or whimsical, then your tone would change as well. Pace. Slow down. This is very important. But sometimes when you want to talk about something really exciting, you could then increase your pace. So that's an important technique that you can use to make your read aloud exciting. Pause to ask listeners questions, as we mentioned before. So these are 4 important tips. Some procedures for success. Record practice sessions. Send these to your colleagues and get feedback from them. Then, after you've had feedback, practice again. Then only do you do a final recording or go live on air. Once you've done the final recording, you can send to your radio station partners. Successes so far for Room to Read in South Africa. We have partnerships with 4 radio stations in KZN, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga. They've allowed us 2 to 3 slots per week of 15 minutes per slot. Our coaches tell stories in Sepedi, isiZulu, Xitsonga, and English. If these books come from a digital platform such as Room to Read's own Literacy Cloud or African Storybook or Book Dash, Then we tell the listeners where to find these books so that if they do want to read it, they can. We are currently negotiating with additional radio stations. Our partners in the radio stations are very, very excited about this opportunity to partner and make a contribution towards learning during this pandemic. Um, and all of our field staff who would normally be going to schools are actually involved in these recordings. And so children get to hear lots of different voices each week. So I will stop there for questions. Thanks.